Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we get a prime time game this weekend at Ohio Stadium, which I assume means it must be a huge game because it's a prime time game. So that also means like last week we actually get to watch some college football this week. That's always nice. Last week it was a 3:30 kick, which means we're doing pregame stuff during the noon games and postgame stuff during the primetime games. So we basically don't get to watch any college football. So I'm looking forward to the noon games, and there is a big noon game this Saturday, Tony. Surprisingly, there is a big game at noon. It's on Fox. I'm as shocked as you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I am worried though because I do like to get to the game, 4 hours, 3.5 hours early or whatever. This Notre Dame Wisconsin game that we're going to start off with starts at noon, and it's probably going to go 4 hours somehow. And that means I'm going to be like racing if I'm going to watch it all at home because it wouldn't make sense to watch three-quarters of it and then leave if it's close. I mean, if it's not close, then of course I will leave. But with Notre Dame, what does not close mean? Is it Wisconsin up by 10 and it's like, well, Notre Dame can't come back from this because they have no offense, and so we'll just have to play it by ear. But yeah, Tom, let's talk about this Notre Dame Wisconsin game. Number 12 Notre Dame 3-0 on the season against number 18 Wisconsin, 1-1 on the season in Soldier Field. The over under on this is 46.5. Wisconsin is the 6.5 point favorite. Is that correct, Tom? Is it the other way around? That's wrong, right?
I don't know. You put the sheet together. I can look it up.
No. I apologize for that.
I trusted you. That's on me. I apologize. I'll look it up right now.
We're getting this show off to a great start. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, Wisconsin is 6.5 point favorite in this one. So I was correct. I just didn't believe myself because everybody loves to love Notre Dame. And one of the things here is, and I'm just using covers.com to get a bunch of different insights and stuff. So far, like 63% of the money is on Notre Dame, which
but the line opened at 5.5 and now it's moved to 6.5, which tells me.
So it's for me, there's really no reason for me to side with Notre Dame here. Jack Cohn has been playing worse and worse and worse. Their quarterback, Notre Dame's quarterback, who was formerly Wisconsin's quarterback. However, does he put it all together? Does he have like the Brett Favre, the game where the day his father died or whatever, and he just have one of these perfect games for no other reason than timing or fate or whatever? And I'm not going to side with fate on this one, as Jack Cohn just has not been the best. Wisconsin has a really good rush defense. They have the number 2 pass defense in the Big Ten in yardage, number 5 in pass efficiency. I'm taking Wisconsin in this one. Notre Dame has been unimpressive all season long, even though they are 3-0. That's fine. They've played 3 bad teams and squeaked by throughout the entire season. So I'm going to lay the points. I'm also feeling feeling pretty good about the under, which is concerning to me as well.
Well, what's concerning to me is I was also going to take Notre Dame, take Wisconsin, lay the points, and take the under. So now I'm sure we're wrong. So Go ahead, Notre Dame, take those points, hammer that over. Yeah, I was so prepared for this game to be like Wisconsin -2 or Wisconsin -3. And I looked at it and I'm like, is that right? Almost a touchdown. But here's the important thing. It's less than a touchdown. So if they're up by 7, you got it. And if they're up by 7, Notre Dame's not kicking a field goal late to screw you over. So yeah, I would tend toward Wisconsin laying the points and the under, because that Wisconsin defense is pretty good and the Notre Dame offense is very much not good. So that's where I am.
I don't know how these two teams will score because defenses are both pretty good, and I'm not expecting any sort of 28-27 type things, or it's just Wisconsin's offense isn't good enough. Notre Dame's offense isn't good enough. So you put those two together against decent defenses, and it should be an under.
This has 24-13 written all over it to me. Something right in that range where. And if someone scores an extra touchdown, it's like, oh, well, now it's 31-13. And guess what? It's still under. So or 24-20, it's still under, like either direction.
All right, let's move to the second game, which it's not a great game, but it is a battle of Texas. And as always, Texas is interesting because of their hilarity. Texas Tech 3-0 on the season, which is very impressive.
Tony, who have they beaten?
Well, let's not talk about that. And those teams that they've beaten have not been very good. And of course, that's how Texas Tech does it. That's how Baylor does it. That's how they all do it. But they are 3-0. Texas, by the way, 2-1, as you all know. Texas favored by 8 here. The over/under is 61.5. Interestingly, this line opened at 10.5. It's been bet down to 8. So there's a lot of people have some serious thoughts on this one. I don't really like Texas, but they looked good against Rice last week, 58-0. That means something, Tom. You don't just beat Rice 58-0 and have it not mean anything. However, the Longhorns are 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 games after allowing fewer than 20 points. In their previous game, they allowed 0 net, so they're feeling themselves. So now, can they beat Texas Tech by 8? Tom, I say yes. And I'm also going to I'll take the over, and I don't like it. I'm going to take the under, and I'm going to take Texas.
So you're taking the over and then the under. So that's
just
quite a hedge
this time.
That's quite a hedge. I'll explain to you after we get off how the vig works. Texas to me is one of those teams that I never like, because just the littlest bit of encouragement and everyone goes, woo, Texas is back, woo! And that never works out. It never, ever, ever works out. But Texas Tech is real bad. Like Texas Tech is 3-0, like on their way to 4-8 kind of bad. So I think Texas, this is much more a statement on Texas Tech than it is on Texas, but Texas -8 all day for me.
The over is 38-17 for the Red Raiders' last 55 games following a straight up win. So I'm going against that trend. I'm taking the under. Where were you on that? Or are you staying away from
I don't have a strong. Texas to me is the play there. I don't have a real strong opinion on the over under there.
Let's move to the first 3:30 game we're going to talk about. Number 9 Clemson, 2-1 against 2-1 NC State. Clemson is a 10-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 47. This is one of those games when everybody expected Clemson to be awesome, that people thought, you know what? There's not a lot of tests in the ACC, but that trip to North Carolina State could be one of those tests. The most amazing thing to me for this game, this is 3 games in, Clemson still hasn't allowed an offensive touchdown on the season. So say whatever you want about their offense. The defense is legitimate. North Carolina State has a good offense, but I assume this is going to be like, what's the max that they score against Clemson? Like 17 points, something like that,
Well, I'm not sure where you're getting NC State has a good offense out of, because NC State has played USF, which is just a steaming pile of garbage, and they played Furman, which is an FCS team, and they've won both of those games. They've hung 45 points in both of those games. Want to guess what happened when they went to Mississippi State and noted defensive head coach Mike Leach?
They did lose.
They hung a mighty 10 points there. So, yeah, my strongest opinion here is the under, but I do think Clemson is going to. I would tend towards Clemson covering here, but the under 47 feels like very, very, very likely to hit to me. I mean, that's just, how many points is NC State going to score against Clemson? As you said, I mean, 17, is that so then
max,
Clemson,
right?
So Clemson has to go 31-17. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe, but that's about the maximum you could possibly have NC State score. So if it's 30, is it 35-10? That would be a real whooping, and you're still hitting the under. So I feel like the under is the play there for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. If I were to take NC State or the Clemson, I would probably take the points, but I feel much better about the under. I don't know how it gets over with these offenses with the Clemson defense at this point. Tom, let's move to the Big 12. Number 14, Iowa State, 2-1 on the season, coming off of a big win over UNLV last week. Baylor 3-0. The over-under on this is 47.5, which seems pretty low for a Big 12 game. Baylor's a 7-point underdog. Baylor has played this season. They opened against Texas State. Then they played Texas Southern. Then they played Kansas. Kansas probably maybe being the worst of the three. So we'll just throw that out there. Um, it seems strange to want to go with the under in a Big 12 game involving Baylor at any point in the last 2 decades. Really, I'm probably going to avoid all of this, even though Baylor has been like they've faced nobody. So Iowa State, I would probably lay the points and just, it's time for Iowa State to be what they're supposed to be. And even as the number 14 team, which they are, if they're just 9-3 on the season, they should still beat this Baylor team by 8, you would think. And I'm not gonna go anywhere near that over under just because I don't like it. I don't like trying to predict what Iowa State's offense is ever going to do, because that's always an iffy proposition. So I would probably just lay the points and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is I had 0 notes on this. Like I had most of these. I have like, oh yeah, this is at least the one that I feel strongest about. This one is just like I have no opinion on this game. Like it's just sure. I mean, I don't think either of these teams are fantastic. I think Baylor is a complete fraud at this point. I don't think there's quite as much of a fraud as Texas Tech, but they're 3-0, but 3-0 on their way to 6-6, kind of 3-0. Like I just don't see it. And Iowa State, like I love Iowa State. I love Matt Campbell, but I mean, they have had one good opponent they've played this year. It was Iowa, and they got clocked by Iowa. Other than that, they barely squeaked one out over Northern Iowa, and then they played UNLV last week, which means nothing. I mean, that's like West Coast UConn. So, yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion on this one way or the other. I would just kind of stay away from it.
Tom, let's move to a game where you will have a strong opinion.
And I absolutely do, yes.
And I'll let you go crazy on this one. Rutgers 3-0 at number 19, Michigan also 3-0. The over-under on this is 49.5. Michigan right now, a 20.5 point favorite. Go.
I talked to someone whose opinion I greatly respect last night, and he was saying he thinks this is a bad matchup for Rutgers, a bad matchup for Rutgers. And that, that alone to me is, this is Michigan give the points all day long. Rutgers doesn't have the horses right now on offense. They're not great in the trenches. Like you might just see them get whipped on the trenches on both sides of the ball. And when that happens, that's when you get just smoked. And, is Noah Vedral going to be the guy who can take advantage of the Rutgers or the Michigan cornerbacks who are a little shaky? Probably not. Do they have the skill talent to take advantage of that? Probably not. The person I talked to and said this, and I kind of agree, like the Ohio State Rutgers game might be substantially closer than the Michigan Rutgers game.
It is interesting. Michigan leading the nation in rushing right now, 350 yards per game, which is insane to me that they have come so far when they used to not be able to run against anybody for several years at a time. And now we both, obviously we do a Michigan Monday podcast every Monday. And I'm not saying they're going to rush for 350 yards for the entire season. They're not going to. But when I watch them run the ball, I don't get the sense that the running game is just going to disappear in November. Is it 210 yards a game at that point? 210 yards a game in November against, as an average, will win you some games in the Big Ten because it'll keep the ball away from the opponent and it'll just continue to pick up first downs. The Noah Vedral, he can run a bit, he can pass a bit, and maybe we don't really know what this Michigan defense is. So maybe there's something there that the Rutgers skill can do something with. But I just don't know how much they're going to have the ball. I think Michigan is just going to pound and do what they do, and maybe throw some play action, try to test that secondary. Rutgers will be without a couple of players, including a starting corner, I believe, following a paintball incident of some sort. So they need to be full strength for this game, and they're not going to be. And I think Cade McNamara, the quarterback for Michigan, is getting more confident, and they're trying to take some shots downfield. They did last week. I assume that will continue. And 20 and a half points is a lot, though, but it hasn't been a lot for Michigan this year. I mean, it's just, yeah, they like another 34-10 type of just smothering type of game, and you've covered easily. And then you're also on the under. So it would feel very strange to take the under in turn regarding Michigan this year. Both of these teams are 3-0 against the spread, Tom. That's pretty good. The Wolverines are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 conference games, though. So
yeah, I just, to me, I think this is a game that's a little bit of a statement game for Michigan, because last year that Rutgers game was like oh my gosh, how far has this team fallen if they're barely surviving Rutgers on the road? And this just feels like, it feels a little revenge tour-y to me, where, this is, you're not going to be overlooking Rutgers because you had a real scare against them last year. So, this is, do you remember the old Sports Center commercial with, I don't remember if it was Evander Holyfield, someone walking through the office going, "Charlie, come and get your whooping." This feels like a Charlie come and get your whooping kind of game, where Jim Harbaugh is going to want to lay it on Greg Schiano. And, Greg Schiano beat him as an Ohio State defensive coordinator a bunch. So I'm sure they're not super big fans of each other's. And yeah, this just feels like Rutgers come and get your whooping. And, and then the week after that, when they hang with Ohio State, then everyone really freaks out. So that'll be fun. We'll get there, and we'll get there in a week or so.
Yeah, I can see something like a 38-17. So I'll go ahead and lay the points and take the over on that one, and we'll see. I'm going to buy in on Michigan's running game and offense right now, and we'll see if their defense can keep up with their own offense. Let's move, Tom, to one of the old Southwestern Conference rivalries. Number 7 Texas A&M 3-0 against number 16 Arkansas 3-0. They're in Jarrah World. The over/under is 47.5. Texas A&M is favored by 5.5, which boy.
I'm going to need someone to show their work on that one.
So, and I think 67% of the money is on Arkansas, and I can understand why, because it almost feels like free money at this point, where the Texas A&M offense still struggling. They're getting their new starting quarterback in there, not getting Isaiah Spiller as into the game as I think they should. Maybe rely on him more while you're trying to figure out what's going on with your quarterbacks. Arkansas runs the ball really well, 282 yards rushing per game. They've got 5 different guys on the team who have rushed for 100 yards this season. So like it's almost like not quite the Arkansas of old with Darren McFadden and Felix Jones and all of these different guys, but they really, really rely on that run. And this feels, I never want to say free money, but like this, out of all of these, like I think that 5.5 seemed like the easiest play for me. There's an over under somewhere in here or there, but yeah, I'm on the Razorback train right now in this one for sure.
Yeah, I'm right there. Like I might even look at Arkansas money line parlayed with the under there. I mean, because you've got. I mean, here's what Texas A&M has done this year. They beat Kent State 41-10, and Kent State's a decent team, but that game was not. That game was closer than that score might indicate for most of it. Beat mighty Colorado 10-7. And then beat New Mexico, who might be one of the worst teams in FBS, 34-0. Like there's not a lot of offense there. The defense is fine. There's not a lot of offense there. And I think this Arkansas team is going to ruin some people's seasons. They're not going 11-1, but they're going to be an 8-4, where a lot of people are just, how did we lose to that stupid team? That Sam Pittman is an old offensive line coach. He is going to grind your butt into dust. That's what they want to do. I don't think they're going to be able to just run over Texas A&M. Texas A&M's defense is too good for that. But, Arkansas's defense is pretty good. And I think they're going to be able to move the ball enough, control the clock, keep the score down. So, yeah, I for sure Arkansas plus 5.5 with the under, but maybe even that I don't know what the money line is, but those are, plus 5.5. That's usually plus 170, something like that. I mean, that's.
It may have been, and maybe I was looking at the wrong one, because it may have been like 220.
220.
It was like wow.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I'm not sure if that was the one, but
that's worth throwing a little money on. and boy, wouldn't this be a great week for us to be at Rutgers? That's why are you not happening until next week? Ohio State Rutgers game. What's going on? Yeah, that was that one to me it's almost those are the ones where it's like, well, you look at the casinos and they're really big and shiny, so they must make a lot of money taking money off of people who are sure they know what they're doing. Like this is one that almost feels trappy how obvious it seems to me.
The money line still says minus 105 or something like that. So
that's going to be the on the point spread.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like easy to me, but so that's Arkansas. I feel like when we start doing the show again, when next week we need to almost eliminate the Big 12 because it's such a downer. And I say that because we're going to Kansas State and Oklahoma State, 2 3-0 teams. Oklahoma State. Yeah, go ahead, Tom. You got something?
Arkansas's money line is plus 186. So I wasn't too far off. Yeah, that's a bunch of money. That's I'd think about that because those Jerry World games are always weird. Like those are even when one of those teams was terrible and one of those teams was good. Those are just, it's a weird game and it ends up being a pretty close game most years. So yeah, all right. Sorry. Back to Kansas State and Oklahoma State.
Yeah. Oklahoma State 6-point favorite, over under 46 on this one. You look at what Oklahoma State has done, 3-0, very, very impressive. They beat Boise State by 1 point, Tulsa by 5 points, Missouri State by 7 points. This to me feels like Kansas State take those points all day long and enjoy your new boat, your new toaster, however much you're going to bet. Like I'm not buying Oklahoma State right now. They have looked very bad. Credit to winning close games against bad teams or average teams or whatever, but you shouldn't be down to the wire like that. You should be executing at a much higher rate than you have been. Kansas State, we know they're always just a pain, and it's never flashy and it's never pretty, and it's always like, ugh. And then they're running the quarterback on 4th and 6 to pick up the first down, and then they get it, and now they've, it's never easy for Kansas State, but somehow they manage, and I think they will manage in this one. And I'm not going to mess with the over/under. I feel like with these two offenses, I'd probably take the under, but I also will take those points. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Oklahoma State is favored by 6, and they beat Tulsa by 5, Boise State by 1, and Missouri State by 7. Like, again, I'm going to need you to show your work on this one. I don't have a super strong opinion on the over/under, but I would tend towards the under on that on 46, even though that's a real low number. But I am in with both feet on Chris Kleiman at K-State. He used to be the North Dakota State head coach. And like, he's the kind of guy that's like a perfect fit for Kansas State. Like, he gets it. He knows what they're trying to do. He's not trying to change how they, change the winning formula there. It's not like exciting football. It's not a team that's loaded with 5 stars or even 4 stars, but like, they do what they do. I think there's a decent possibility they win this game, K-State. And I think, Tony, I'm going to get ahead of this right now. I'm going to look at when Kansas State plays Oklahoma. Oh, next week in Manhattan. Tony, I don't know. Oklahoma going to Manhattan next week. I don't know. I may be like, K-State is one of those teams that I follow their account on Twitter because I've always just something about their aesthetic, and they're like, I've always loved that team. Oklahoma at Kansas State next week, Tony. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Will they be overlooking the Cowboys this week?
Not on the road. Kansas State's not good enough to overlook anyone. I mean, that's not, I mean, it's like, this is not like, Kansas State going on the road to, bringing in some FC at, Northern Colorado or something. Like, you're not going on the road to a 3-0 team where you're a 6-point underdog and overlooking them. So I don't think so. But yeah, I think I don't know that I think Oklahoma State's going to win this game by 6 for sure. And I might even look at Kansas State outright.
Kansas State plus 190 on the money line, by the way, if you want to throw that in there, and which I know you do. Let's move to Tom. Finally, some Big Ten action, because this to me is interesting. Nebraska 2-2 on the season. Is that correct? Yes, it is, because they started out in week 0 against number 20 back in the rankings, Michigan State. Spartans 3-0 looked like a real team. Michigan State favored by only 5. Over under on this is 52. I realized Nebraska took Oklahoma to the wire last week, and that doesn't mean much to me, really, when you look at what Oklahoma has done and what Nebraska, that loss to Illinois cancels out any good that that happens here on out, even though playing well at Oklahoma means something, of course. Adrian Martinez played well, but the problem with Adrian Martinez is he played well last week, so now he's due to not play well this week, and you got to just get him on the right weeks. And I think maybe Michigan State will. That 5 points doesn't seem like enough for me. Like I will go ahead and I'm going to take Michigan State there. I don't know if I'm going to mess with the over under, but I'm liking what I'm seeing for Michigan State. Kenneth Walker, the running back, continues to run the ball. The offense looks legit. I don't want to say legit, looks competent. Like it looks like it will give Nebraska trouble and other teams throughout the conference trouble. I was listening to a national radio show, and one of the national hosts, who's I guess a respected guy, was mentioning like Mel Tucker being a good replacement for Nick Saban down the road, and it seems like it's very early to say that. And I don't know that Alabama only needs to go to former Michigan State coaches, but if they want, have at it. But I'm taking the Spartans there. 5 doesn't seem like enough to me.
Yeah, I mean, 5 doesn't seem like a ton. So, I mean, I would tend towards that, but the under 52 seems much more interesting to me. I mean, here's Nebraska's scores. They had 52 total points in the loss to Illinois. They had 59 against Fordham, which, 52-7 against Fordham doesn't really move the needle for me. 31 total points against Buffalo in a 28-3 win, and 39 total points again at Oklahoma last week. I mean, it seems like Michigan State's got a decent defense, not a great defense, but they can run the ball. They're going to keep the clock moving. Got a decent defense. Nebraska, I don't really buy the offense yet, and I don't think that's going to go great on the road against a pretty good defense. So I would, I would think about Michigan State giving the points and also taking the under there.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we were all, I don't know if we were all in agreement taking that over the Nebraska Oklahoma last week. Like, oh yeah, that's it's Oklahoma's defense and whatever. It's not great. It's due to give up some points, and of course the under was the big winner there. Tom, I don't really have much on Tennessee. 2-1 at Florida, number 11 Florida, 2-1 as well. Over under is 63 on this. Florida favored by 19.5. This used to be one of my favorite rivalries. I grew up with it in terms of you grew up in the 90s. Tennessee was awesome. Florida was awesome. It was fun to watch. The uniforms were great. The stadiums, all of that. But it's Tennessee is, I don't want to say it's gross or whatever, but it grossens things up, if you will. And Joe Milton not playing well. I didn't even get a chance to really do much looking at this one because frankly I ran out of time, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to go ahead and lay the points, and just really the Tennessee defense, Tennessee offense, the Tennessee program as a whole, I can't ever have faith in. Like, I need to see something from them to really ever have faith in them again. And I don't know when that's going to be. And I don't know how much of something that would require, because it would be take more than 2 or 3 or 4 games for me to start thinking, okay, Tennessee is something that, because even when they've had good seasons in the past, it's always been like, yeah, but I want to see 2 seasons in a row. So it's going to take a while for me to ever believe in Tennessee again.
Well, Tennessee this year opened with a win over Bowling Green, 38-6, and Bowling Green might be almost Akron level bad. And then they lost it to Pitt at home to Pitt, who Pitt just lost to. Who did Pitt lose to last week?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan, yeah. I mean, so Pitt's not anything special. And then they beat Tennessee Tech. So it's like, oh, Tennessee 2-1. They must be pretty. Nope. I don't know how much to buy into Florida, because Florida, I mean, they looked good for once. They fell way behind against Alabama last week, and then they came almost all the way back, but couldn't finish it. But I mean, they were not real impressive in their first 2 games either. I don't know quite how much to believe in Florida yet, so I think I'm staying away from this one. Like, if I had to make a play here, I'd be Florida give the points, just because there is no worse feeling than sitting there watching a team that you know is garbage and going, well, as long as they don't lose by that, like, no, don't do that. That's just a way to end up feeling dumb. So yeah, I'm not 100% sold on Florida yet. And I'm quite sold on the fact that Tennessee is not good and not getting any better. So Tennessee has coming up, they have at Florida, at Missouri, South Carolina, then Ole Miss, at Alabama, at Kentucky, home for Georgia, South Alabama, and Vanderbilt. Like, they might beat South Alabama and Vanderbilt. I think they probably beat South Carolina because South Carolina is pretty bad. But like that, this feels like 2-1 on the way to 5-7 to me, and it's like two of the wins at that point are against. South Alabama's a FBS team. Sorry, but yeah, I mean, you've got your wins are Bowling Green, Tennessee Tech, South Alabama. That's more than half of your wins, and the other one is Vanderbilt, who's terrible too. Like, it just that feels like exactly where this season is headed, where it's like 5-7, like, oh, they almost made a bowl. Like, yeah, would you like to look at the results and see what's actually there? Because it's less than the eye might think.
And then you have to hope that Emory Jones doesn't throw like a pick six to turn a 21-point game into a 14-point game in this one. And you're relying on some unreliable players. And so maybe just avoid that one altogether. The last game on this schedule, Tom, back to the Big 12, but this one's okay because it's 2-1 West Virginia against at number 4 Oklahoma, 3-0 Oklahoma on the season. Sooners 16.5-point favorites. The over-under on this is 56. We saw West Virginia open the season with the loss to Maryland, but they have bounced back in a sense. They beat Virginia Tech last week. West Virginia's offense is average nationally. I mean, it is what it is, but does it need to be great against Oklahoma? Oklahoma's defense has gotten better, as we've seen, but still they can give up some stuff. Oklahoma scoring 46.3 points per game, but they've had a 40-35 win over Tulane. Last week's 23-16 win over Nebraska. I know a lot of people are feeling good about the Mountaineers here. I think 2/3 of the money right now is on West Virginia. So that gives you some sort of an answer there. 16.5 is a lot. We haven't seen Oklahoma really respond in any way like that against a competent opponent this season. So I'm taking West Virginia with the idea that this is a night game. This is a big game. This is if Oklahoma is ever focused, this should be the one where they are. And last week was a big noon kickoff. That's why it's understandable if there's just a slow start with Oklahoma and Nebraska and it doesn't look like it was supposed to. But this being a night game, everything will be geared up. But I still want to see Oklahoma do it. That's probably why I wouldn't even touch this one because I don't believe in Oklahoma yet, but also it's time for them to do something. So that those two mixes, that doesn't mix well. It's the oil and water. So I'm just going to stay away from it.
Yeah, I don't. I like Neil Brown, head coach of West Virginia. He's one of those guys who's like a good program builder guy, and just you get the good culture, and you have a good, solid, respectable program. He's not winning a national championship there or anything, but that's a team that's going to be a pain in the butt to play more and more as he gets more of his guys in there. Because this is only his third year there, I believe. So he's someone who I would have a lot of respect for. If this game's in West Virginia, you might even think about maybe picking against Oklahoma. I am not in at all on Oklahoma this year. I haven't seen it. I don't know that the defense is that good. I don't know that Spencer Rattler is nearly as good as the hype would suggest. So I'm with you. I guess I'm staying away here, but if you were doing something, West Virginia take the points, and but I just this is another one that feels trappy to me. This one feels too easy to me because it's like West Virginia is too well coached to get completely smoked, and I really don't buy into Oklahoma yet. So, but yeah, that to me is a stay away.
Yeah, at some point, Spencer Rattler and those receivers in the running game, it's all going to come together, and the defense will do enough. And I wouldn't want it to be the game I was betting against them on. So, yeah, I would stay away from that. Anything else, Tom, before we get out of here?
I think that covers it. Unless we want to, we'll have another fun weekend of football. It's like there are no games on here that are like crazy appealing, like massive matchup. I mean, the best one is the Notre Dame Wisconsin game, and that's two teams that are just outside the top 10. Those weeks when people go, well, it's not, the week's just okay. Those are so often the very best weeks of college football because it's like everyone is, that's when you have to look ahead games, and those are my favorites where you just have the crazy week out of nowhere.
It is, and that's what makes college football the best. It's not the big games; it's the crazy weeks that really tie it all together. So perhaps that will be one of these weekends, and it's okay to say that because with Ohio State playing Akron, there should be no concerns about the craziness happening in Columbus. So root for crazy, enjoy it.
That would be one of the crazier results I could ever remember. I mean, that would be like the Stanford USC what's your deal game, except maybe even more. So yeah, that I don't think Ohio State fans are going to have a nervous Saturday, but if they do, oh boy, I have bad news about the trip to Rutgers next week.
Ohio State goes into Rutgers as a 4-point underdog. Can you believe that? Anyway, that will do it for today's show. Want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. As always, check us out at BuckeyeScoop.com. Become a member. If you are already a member, thank you for that. You can also find all shows like this one at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Go ahead and hit the notification bell, subscribe, and anytime we drop a video, you will be notified. So you know when we're going live, you know when a new interview has dropped, a new podcast has dropped, all that good stuff. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you guys later.